everyone. I'm Jon Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. Bethany Joy Lenz lived and worked in Wilmington for about a decade while starring on the hit TV show One Tree Hill. Fans of the show did not know, though, that while she was having success on screen, Bethany's personal life was much different. She was being manipulated into joining a religious cult that ultimately cost her millions of dollars. Her 2024 best-selling memoir, called Dinner for Vampires, Life on a Cult TV Show While Also in an Actual Cult, describes the coercion that kept her in that group before she gathered up enough courage to take her daughter and leave it. Along with hosting a podcast with two of her former One Tree Hill co-stars, Sophia Bush and Hillary Burton, Bethany has now become a queen in a city that she says feels like home. Bethany Joy Lenz, welcome to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast. So glad you're here.
Great to talk with you, Jon. Thanks for having me.
You've spent a ton of time in Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach area while you were shooting the show. You've come back several times afterwards. You know about the history and the fanfare of the North Carolina Azalea Festival. So what does it mean to you to be the queen for 2025?
I was absolutely blown away when I was asked to do this. This festival has been, it's an institution in Wilmington, certainly, and has been around, I think this is the 78th, I believe. To be a part of something that's been running for so long it's meaningful in a few ways. I think the first just being, obviously, my heart is so deeply tied to Wilmington and to North Carolina that I'm so honored to be able to serve in this capacity to help celebrate the pride of Wilmington, the pride of the coastal city to the mountains, to be able to celebrate the hardworking people, the industry, and then of course the gardens and flowers and how just Mother Nature shows up, which is really so much of what the Azalea Festival is all about, is just showing off the beauty that is North Carolina and Wilmington.
Right.
So to be a part of that is really such an honor to help celebrate that, because it's deep in me and it's a huge part of my heart. The poetry and the nature around there spoke to me in so many ways, and it was hugely inspiring to me as an artist. And then the other way that it feels really inspiring is that, or it's such an honor, I guess, because it feels fitting for me. So much of my life, I think, is entrenched in this. The name of my newspaper is Modern Vintage. It's the idea of like living in the excitement of what we have today, but connected to our past.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much of what I think about on a daily basis is, how does this connect to the past? How old is that tree? How do generations work in families? Or how do things get passed down? I love reading old books. I love antiquing. So there's this huge part of me that just has always been very connected to the past. And it's incredible to step into this role with something that's been around for this long.
Have you anticipated what the feeling is going to be like when they actually put that crown on your head, and then you'll not wearing it 24/7, and then having it on for the rest of the festival? You're going to be the centerpiece as the queen of this festival. You know what that's going to feel like?
I don't. I haven't thought about that until you said it right now. And now it's going to really plague me. It'll keep me up at night. No, I'm thrilled. I don't know what to say, Jon. I think you read my memoir. In my book, I talk about how growing up in the various circumstances that I did, there was so much around me and, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what our life is supposed to look like and what it does look like. And I always felt a bit like, I think at one point I wrote something about, like, I feel like I'm a raccoon, like picking lettuce out of her dumpster lettuce out of her paws. Like, I've always been kind of the scrappy kid and a real survivor, and not someone that I ever felt was elegant or graceful enough to be a queen.
Really?
When I look at Sharon Lawrence, who was last year's Azalea Queen, she's always embodied so much grace to me and elegance. And I've worked with her several times since then. And she's very consistent in that way. Everywhere she goes, she just sort of floats through rooms. And I've always like, gosh, I wish I could be like Sharon. She's amazing. So when I heard that she nominated me for this and that I was chosen, it's it's emotional for me. It's really special. Like, oh, it's a knock on those stories we tell ourselves, the
Yeah.
lies. So it's really a lovely thing, and I hope that I can do you guys proud and just wear the crown in a way that really honors North Carolina.
What are your memories of this part of the world? You know, in your book, you say you turned 30 here, your daughter was born here. So not only One Tree Hill, but Bethany's life moments happened here in Wilmington. So I imagine that this place over and above One Tree Hill has those special things in the back of your mind.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing that makes it home. Anytime you spend a significant amount of time in some place and you bond with the people there, and not just the cast members, but our crew. I mean, the people who are locals who are still there today. I built so many memories. It's in my blood, it's in my bones, and it's one of those things that like an old friend who you haven't spoken to in a while, but as soon as you see them, you just pick right up where you left off. That's what Wilmington feels like to me every time I land.
Can you explain the allure of One Tree Hill, Bethany? I mean, the fans are dedicated. They show up to conventions year after year. They work to save the building on South Front Street where you all did so much of your shooting. Why is it so popular?
It's such an enigma, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I can guess, just by observation of pop culture, I think the show happened right in a time frame that was really critical for teens when there were no cell phones at the beginning of the show,
Hmm.
and there was no social media. And it was really all the other teen shows at the time, it felt I think there was a lot of genre stuff like OC or Gossip Girl were very high, high end, high drama, luxury, wealth, rich kids. Then you've got Vampire Diaries, which is all this dark vampire genre, supernatural, and then Supernatural also was a show.
Yeah.
And One Tree Hill was just, we've said this on Drama Queens before, it's just kids feeling their feelings.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that that ever gets old. And you could put us in any time period in the 1800s. You could put us in space. If you make a show that's just about kids feeling their feelings, people will always show up for that because it's always happening in the world. And I think that's also why new generations are continuing to find the show and really enjoy it because it harkens to a time that they were not present for, but
Hmm.
there's something in them that longs for that simplicity that I just don't know that many teens nowadays can get because of the social media and the access to information.
Right.
So there's this sort of mystique and nostalgia, and it's comforting. It's characters that you grew up with 10 years. So it's the same reason people go back to Grey's Anatomy, or they sit and watch Law and Order or CSIs. You know these characters.
Yep.
And so whatever adventure they go on, you just want to go along with it and then relive them over and over again.
When I talked to Bevan Prince a couple of years ago, and Bevan is one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, by the
Yeah, she's
way,
amazing.
she said that the show shooting here in Wilmington, and I think you wrote about this a little bit in your book, you were kind of removed from knowing that it was gaining popularity, that
Yes.
you really didn't know, you weren't in LA or New York or anything like that. Do you remember when you realized that, hey, people watch us and a lot of people like us and this is catching on?
I do, and I wrote about this in the book too. We pulled up at TRL in New York at MTV in our limo, and the streets. We were just all flown up there to do to do an interview on TRL, which was exciting. But Hillary also had been working on MTV, and so I think a lot of us just thought, oh, she made this connection for us. That's great. You know, this industry is so built on connections and publicity connections and things. So I don't think we thought it was as big a deal as it was. And when we pulled up in the limo into Times Square, there were so many people. And we really thought, like, my first thought was, who is here? Is this like, is Brittany here? Like, what is going on? And as we started to get closer to the building and saw the signs that people were holding up, it was OTH Forever and Always and Forever and Nathan and Haley and Peyton and Lucas. And we just were speechless. We didn't know what to say, but we realized, I think collectively in that moment, that we were a part of something way bigger than we knew.
You wrote about this in the book too, that you had special relationships with all of your co-stars, obviously, but also with your mama bears here, you called them.
Yeah.
Do you still stay in touch? I mean, I know you host the podcast with Sophie and Hillary, but how much do you stay in touch with the mama bears or your other co-stars?
Mamas. Oh man, I love them. Um, what's wonderful about social media is being able to still see what's going on in people's lives. And so there is this sort of thread that I haven't seen several of them in a while, probably 5 or 6 years. But again, it's like the next time we see them, we pick right up where we left off. And I'm actually gathering a few people when I'm in town for the Azalea Festival for
Nice,
a little
nice.
cocktail and dinner for my birthday. So I'll see some of them then. But yeah, they're always so close in my heart, and I feel like every time we do see each other, we just pick right up where we left off. So hopefully we'll be. It's been a few years, and I hope that I get to see a lot of them this time around too.
Yeah, your mama bears that you write about in the book, which I'm going to get into here in a minute, they just hold a special place. And the conversations you had with them and the things you brought to them, even before your own family
Yeah, I
sometimes.
mean, there is something sacred that happens in the hair and makeup trailer. For clarification, I called the mama bears in my book that those are I'm referring to the hair and makeup.
Yeah.
Well, moms and dads. I mean, we had some men in the trailer too, but in particular, when the show was beginning early on, it was mostly women, and there is something about a Southern mama. I grew up, I was in Texas until I was 12, and then we moved to New Jersey. And there's something about a Jersey mama too, but they're a different vibe.
Yeah.
But the Southern mama, um, I had so many friends when I was young who I would go to their houses and their mothers were just, there was something so warm and comforting and smart and sassy. And I felt really safe with them. And so getting back into Wilmington, back into the South, sitting in a chair with a woman who was in her late 30s, early 40s, and she just would wrap me up in a blanket. And, they brush your hair and they talk to you. And how was your night? And what's going on with this and that? And, oh, here's the tea. And you need a little shot of vodka if it's 8 p.m. And we still had to keep going. There's a drawer for that too. They just knew how to take care of you, and I really did always feel so loved by them.
I want to ask you something here. The title of your book, you use the word cult twice, but it's two different kind of descriptions here, correct? The
Yeah.
meanings are different, right?
Yes, sir. So it's the cult TV show element of it is obviously the show is not about a cult.
Right.
It's got a cult following. It's a colloquial phrase that we use in culture.
Hmm.
And then the actual cult, which was this small religious group that I became a part of when I was so young. I was 20 or 21. And I got involved in this small home group Bible study in Los Angeles that was pretty benign. And like so many other Bible studies I had been to growing up as a charismatic Christian, particularly in the South. And I just got involved with this group that turned as it progressed and as somebody came in as a pastor who was a malignant narcissist, I believe, and was looking for a cash out. And there were a lot of young entertainers and actors in that group and people in the entertainment industry, managers, producers. And we were all just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and as I read the book, the one thing that kept popping up in my mind is that poor kid. That's the phrase that I was like, oh, that poor kid. Oh, that
Yeah.
poor kid could have been Belle on Broadway. Oh, that
Yeah.
poor kid couldn't even enjoy some of the notoriety that she worked so hard for. And like you said, it began innocently enough. A decade later, now that you've published the book, as you look back on some of the times that you thought or even gave the smallest inkling that this isn't right for me, are you surprised you didn't act on them at all?
I'm not surprised because now I understand how coercion works and how manipulation works.
Okay.
It is designed to make you think that you're going crazy and that you're the one who's got all the problems. And what's hard about that is every single one of us is flawed. Every one of us does have problems. And we also, I think by nature, are generally non-confrontational. And so it's when you have friends, you want to keep them and you don't tend to point out your friends' flaws to them. Uh, so then it can also create this sense of, especially for someone like me, who was an only child and um, used to in my work creatively, used to criticism and creative criticism that it made me feel safe to have constructive criticism because then I could work with it and change and grow. But
Right.
in a lot of my friendships and relationships, I was seeking that same kind of constructive criticism, which I think is healthy in a lot of relationships so that you can grow and bump up against each other and hey, that hurt my feelings. Oh, I'm sorry. Why did you say it that way? You work things out.
Yeah.
But I wasn't getting a lot of that. And so when I became a part of this group, and the same thing that happens to people in toxic work environments or abusive relationships, where there's almost this sense of craving the knowledge of someone else mirroring back to you, yeah, you're flawed. It's like, I am, and so are you, and so we all are, and that's okay. It's
Hmm.
relieving.
Right.
So I was getting that, but it was from someone who was intentionally manipulating me. So there's such a fine line. It's really hard to tell the difference when you're in the moment. You're almost grateful for someone's courage in their honesty with you. And if you're too young and inexperienced to be able to have the wisdom to recognize this person is actually using this tool in a way to gain something from me, this is not a totally altruistic endeavor,
Right.
then you can kind of fall into it. You start to trust them, then you start to trust yourself less because the more things they mirror back to you that you
Hmm.
know are true, the more they can slip in things that may not be true, but you already trust them with all the other things. So you're like, well, I guess maybe I should trust this.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn, John. It takes a long time. And I don't, to answer your question in a long-winded way, forgive my neurodivergence.
No,
I know it's but
I'm fascinated by it. It really, because when I read the book, I was fascinated by it then, and I'm fascinated by it now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's just I could not have done anything different. I was craving attachment like every human does,
Right.
and I was in a position where I could be taken advantage of. And everybody gets taken advantage of. It's going to happen. You can't
Yeah.
live your life closed off. You have to trust people. And some people are going to take advantage of that trust. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to me that people know this story is to know that it's okay. It's okay that you get taken advantage of. It's not into terms of justice, but like
Right.
it's okay that you're susceptible to that because that means that you're trusting and you're open. So how do we gain tools to be able to recognize the difference between coercion, manipulation, gaslighting, and all those things, and someone who is genuine and a friend and maybe just overstepping? There's a nuance to it, and the answer is not just to close yourself off. The answer is to learn the differentiations and do that by trial and error.
It's amazing to me when reading about your early career. I did some research before getting the copy of your book, and almost making the Mickey Mouse Club, landing the role on Guiding Light, One Tree Hill at 22. It's amazing for me to think where your career could be had it
Yeah.
not been for let's call them the family, because you do in the book.
Yeah.
Do you lament that? It doesn't seem to me that you're the kind of person to lament, but is there a time and a place where you go, man, wow, where could I
Oh,
be now?
it's a great question, John. I actually am a huge lamenter because I have to grieve things that hurt and things that I don't understand. And I do take the time to process through it because I just don't want to hold things into my body.
Okay.
Um, and I absolutely have had many days of that, looking at the past, wondering where I could be in the future. What's what has been so comforting is knowing that yes, my career could have been in a further along place.
Right.
Um, but I don't know what kind of a person I would be if I hadn't had the opportunity to suffer. Uh,
Wow.
I I was a, I had many complications growing up.
Hmm.
There was a lot of, as I was mentioning before, generational habits. There was a lot of me just sort of fending for myself emotionally, trying to figure out life. And um, I just don't know that I would have had the character development to be able to handle a illustrious career if I hadn't been through this. There's something about having walked through these like really, really difficult things that humble you and show you that you're not guaranteed anything in life, you're not owed anything in life. Um, it's okay to dream, but they're not always guaranteed to come true. These hard lessons are incredibly valuable. And as difficult as it was, I really wouldn't trade the experience for anything because the redemption that I'm experiencing on the other side of it
Hmm.
is so good. And
No,
I feel so authentic and so much more myself than I ever was. So I I don't know, it's in God's hands. Like what can I
yeah,
complain about?
yeah, and again, it's fascinating to me, and I respect you even more now, because of seeing the value even in something that was so difficult and so bad for you financially, career wise, and everything else like that. You're able to see some small positive in your own character and your own growth. That to me
Not
is
even for me, it doesn't even feel like a small positive. It's like it revolutionized my whole life. It changed the trajectory of my entire life. And I
yeah,
look at where I could have gone, and I would never want a huge career and be a person of low character development or be a person that didn't wasn't able to handle and navigate and didn't have any wisdom. I wouldn't want that. So to me, this is like it's a gift in some bizarre cosmic way. I'm grateful. Like,
yeah,
look, and now I get to share for other people to be able to prevent them in whatever ways I can to help them learn how to stop things like this happening to them as well or their loved ones. I don't know, John. It's a win-win because everybody's got to deal with something. Like everybody's going to get dealt a hand of hard stuff in life.
right.
So this was mine.
Who did you write the book for? Did you write it for Bethany? Did you write it for other survivors? Who was the target audience when you sat down and typed that first word?
Hmm. Yeah, the dedication in my book is this book is for you. And I wrote that because as much as there are so many people in my life who I love and who I am so grateful for them showing up for me and helping pull me out of this and teaching me things along the way. I have made peace with so much of this. I have made amends. I have had so many conversations with those friends and those people in my life that the only reason it made sense to me to write this book was that it actually would be helpful to people. And as a creative, I wanted the opportunity to write a book. I've always wanted to do that. I always thought it would be fiction. I didn't think I'd be writing a memoir about the most difficult thing in my life.
Right.
But I knew it would be good for me creatively. It would be a good challenge, and I knew I could do it because I'm a writer. I've always been a writer, and I knew it would help. I mean, I hoped deep down that it really would help people because it couldn't just be a vanity project. I'm too busy
Yeah. Yeah.
for a vanity project. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, I understand. Why use some people's real names and others different names? QB, less.
Yeah. The real names, I think, were those are the public figures, the people that everyone was already going to know, and it would be really strange, I think, if I were to
Okay.
say, if I were to call Paul Johansson, uh, I don't know, George. Like, I
No, I
think it just
understand.
people would have thought it was strange. So the public figures I kept in the light, and then the people who uh, were not public figures it felt like the right thing to do. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I wasn't doing this to hurt or harm anyone or get back at anyone. I just wanted to tell my story and let the chips fall where they may.
I don't. I want to talk about things, but I don't want to. I don't want to take too much away from people reading the book on their own because I think the experience of reading the book gives one so much into your life and so much into what was happening when you were this person on this show that was very popular. But there was one kind of a crux and something I wanted to ask you about the 2005 One Tree Hill concert tour. Had that not happened and reignited your passion for singing the songs, do you think you would have left One Tree Hill maybe earlier and gone to the family more full time? Because that seemed to me to be the one that kind of kept you. It was going popular, you were having fun, but that seemed to me to be the time that you could have said, "All right, I'm done, see ya," and that kept you there.
Well, no, because we were under contract, and that's
Okay.
just how TV shows work. They sign you up for 6 years when you go in for your screen test.
Okay.
So I would have had to be a part of that. But I think at the end of the 6 years, I certainly would have left if it hadn't been for the fact that the group leader was running out of money and wanted more funds. So convinced me to go back to the show. But also thank God, because those last 3 years were super pivotal for me in my personal growth and my extraction from the group and remaining far away from them.
Right.
Um, that's why I've said this show really, I think, saved my life in a lot of ways because I had to be away from them 9 months out of the year.
Yeah. You've done several Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
I've spoken several times to Trevor Donovan, who has done many of them as well. And he says there's something special about a Hallmark movie production. The messaging, the feeling on the set, the way they're done. I mean, they're done in 30 days or so and then put together. What are your thoughts?
15.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about the Hallmark movies? Because you've been in several, and my wife is a Hallmark junkie. She loves them all. But Trevor's told me several times there's something special about being on those sets and in those productions.
Yeah, there really is. It really is such a family over there. So many people, you see so many familiar faces every time you do a Hallmark film. And what continues to strike me is how many people will run into me on the street and I never quite know what I'm going to get recognized for. It's usually Hallmark or One Tree Hill. Sometimes it's Guiding Light, but usually it's one of those two. And if it's uh, if it's someone who's a Hallmark fan, so often what I hear is your movies make me feel so good. And that's not just about me. That's just being able to watch the network and watch the stories that are being told. And I hear many stories about people who work very difficult jobs, very difficult. I mean, from everything from people who are on the ground floor in anti-sex trafficking organizations with the government to people who are just they're in social work, or they're teachers, and it's long days and long hours, and it can be exhausting. And they don't want to come home and, well, first they don't want to come home and scroll through a million different commercials of different shows. Like, we all just get so exhausted. I'm like, oh, just put on Frasier. I can't take it anymore. But they also don't want to see more of the hard stuff. And as much as I love storytelling of in all forms, and I think it's really important to explore difficult stories, a lot of people live them on a daily basis, and they just want to see something that's going to make them happy and smile and feel good. And to be able to do that with Hallmark, they've got their formula down. They know exactly how to do that for people, and somehow it still feels surprising and exciting every time. It's wonderful.
My wife Sheila wanted me to ask you specifically about Biltmore Christmas. 2023. It's such a special place, the Biltmore. Anybody in North Carolina knows about it, and millions have visited it. But did you get any special access to places the public isn't allowed to go inside that wonderful structure?
I wish I could say yes, not many. I mean, we got a private tour, which was really cool, and we did get to see the old swimming pool, which
Right.
drained,
Yeah.
and we saw the bowling alley. There were plenty of little nooks and crannies, and I was like, what's over there? Come on this way. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I didn't, but I will tell you something really, the most interesting thing that I learned about the Biltmore, most interesting for me anyway. There's a lot of interesting things about Biltmore.
Yeah.
But during World War II, the music room has Napoleon's piano in it. And during World War II, the Smithsonian was worried that their art was going to be bombed or stormed and, taken, because
Hmm.
Hitler was collecting a ton of art.
Yeah.
And so they sent all of the art, all of the most valuable pieces in the Smithsonian to Biltmore.
Yeah.
They put it inside the music room and boarded up, like put a brick wall up in front of the entrance and everything, and completely sealed it off. Nobody knew it existed. And it sat there for the duration of World War II until it
Yeah.
was over and safe.
Mm.
You're nodding like you knew that already. I had no idea. I thought that
Yeah.
was wild.
It's one of the tales of the Biltmore that you hear as you've been in. Sheila and I have been in North Carolina now for almost 40 years,
Okay,
doing
yes, you've
doing
heard
TV,
it.
yeah, doing TV in the New Bern market and then here in Wilmington. And so, you go out there and then I've got friends who work in that market and they will tell you that they've done stories on the person who built that wall,
Oh,
people who were
wow.
in and around at that time, and how the swimming pool was built, why it was built, and how it was built underground in that time was an extraordinary piece of engineering. How they
Yes.
got that all done. And, when Helene came through here last year, the grounds of the Biltmore suffered some damage, but the house itself was preserved. And
Yeah.
and I think so many people were thankful because that's just a jewel in this state. And the stories like the one you just told need to be remembered in my mind.
Absolutely. I hope that everyone who can just gets a chance to go out there and tour Biltmore. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
They really do care. Chase Pickering, who is a descendant of the Vanderbilts, he is in charge of everything right now. And I've had so many lovely conversations with him. He really cares, like genuinely cares about the house, the staff. He knows everyone's name, even the guy sweeping the floors. Like they really care.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the way that the place is run. You can see it in the staff. Um, it's just a lovely place.
Yeah, and that's a special to be able to actually work there. I would imagine it was probably just taking that in for the 2 or 3 weeks, however long you were there, to me must have just been fantastic.
So stunning. I wish we had filmed in spring because I think she really shows off all her glory in the springtime. But we did get all the Christmas decorations, so that was really
Yeah,
fun.
that's cool too. You, Hillary, and Sophia, you get the chance to do the Drama Queens podcast. How freeing is this platform? I am truly enjoying this conversation with you, and it's not going to be a 10 or a 15-second soundbite later on our
Um,
newscast. To this type of platform to me, and I've been doing this now 9 seasons, I love this long form conversation. What about you?
I do too. It's so great. I was really nervous about it when we started because I have long considered myself a writer and not a talker. If I have something important to say, I practice it, I write it down. I'm a little neurotic about it because I feel like I just stumble over my words all the time. And so I really wasn't sure how this was going to go. But as we've gone on, I think we're coming on 3 or 4 years now. I can't remember. But I've built up so much confidence. I have really learned how to just enjoy these long form conversations because I do it all the time with friends. I'll sit and talk for hours, but there's something sort of self-conscious about doing it in front of a microphone until you realize how many interesting things can come up in conversation, and you just never know where it's going to go. So even though we are talking officially about each episode that we watch, it's amazing to me how much thought and how many interesting topics will come up and things that I've never thought that I'd learn as we go along. It's been really fun.
Do you still get the same kick acting, performing, singing as you did in The Wizard of Oz way back when?
Back when I was 7, the
Yeah.
day I realized this is for me. I do, I haven't been on a stage in a long time, and I really hope to soon. My daughter is in her teens, and in the next few years will be out of the house and off to college. And so I think that might be a prime opportunity for me, unless I go do a summer gig somewhere. But um, I'm still a mom here, a single mom, so I got to make sure I'm home with her. But I do love being on stage, my memories of it anyway. On camera, I love it if it's good material. The older I get, the less patience I have for bad material because I just feel like my time is so valuable.
Hmm.
And I really, there's so many other things I'd rather be doing if I'm not going to be telling a story that feels meaningful to me in some way.
Right.
What's the Michael Caine adage? He's like, you take a movie for either the script is great, the money's great, or the location is great. So
Yeah.
you pick one of those three to prioritize. And I do find that that is a useful way of delineating what I want to do and what I don't.
Does Rosie understand a lot of what happened with Idaho? I know she was young at the time, but I imagine, have you had conversations with her about it as the book was getting ready to come out? Does she know about Idaho? Does she know about Mom on One Tree Hill?
Well, I tend to not talk about that in regards to her because I just want to respect her autonomy and
Okay.
her own space. Um, but yeah, it's difficult. It's always a difficult thing to navigate with children when you're a parent who's been through something hard that you never want to say anything bad about the other parent. And so what I can say is that as I wrote my book, I was really intentional to not vilify anyone as best I could while still being authentic to my experience.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I did it perfectly, but that certainly was my heart.
I had an absolute blast talking with you today. This is
Too.
I could ask you a whole lot more questions about it, but I really truly do encourage everybody to go out and get Dinner for Vampires. And you did a great job in keeping that until about the last 30 pages too. What's Dinner for? What am I going to get? What Dinner for Vampires is about? And then bang, it hits you almost when you're done the book, and I'm like, there it is.
Uh, we debated about putting it in or not, but I was like, I just think there are going to be some people who aren't quite because it's just not something that people think about often, narcissism as vampires. And
Right.
it's a little poetic, and I just wanted to make sure everybody really understood what I was saying.
Yeah,
So I'm glad that that helped. That's great.
it was well done the way you did it. I know
Oh,
this week's going to be filled with Azalea Festival, but
will I
what's
see
on?
you there? Are you going to the
I'll be
festival?
there. I'll be there. Yes,
Great.
I'll be there. But what's on your to-do list? What's next after Azalea Festival? I know you do the podcast, but what's on your itinerary for the next couple of years? What would you like to do?
Yeah, I plan to write another book. Um, I am working on some music. I've got a song coming out. I have a newspaper. It's a broadsheet newspaper that is kind of artistic and lifestyle and just really geared toward reinvigorating critical thinking, thinking about current events by looking at the past.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'll be focused on that. And I mean, I'm never bored. So there's two musicals I'm writing. There's two ideas for books that I've been working on. There's like I've got music, I've got my kid. There's just always something going on. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, she's the 2025 North Carolina Azalea Festival Queen, former star of One Tree Hill, now a New York Times best-selling author as well. Bethany Joy Lenz, I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for joining the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time.
I loved talking with you, John. I hope I get to see you at the festival, and thank you for reading my book, taking the time to do that, and having such thoughtful questions. And I hope that your audience is inspired. Thank you so much. So appreciative.
So thankful to Bethany Joy Lenz for taking time from her busy schedule to join us for this week's podcast interview. Her best-selling memoir, Dinner for Vampires, is a great read. I highly recommend it to you. Bethany is very active on social media. Give her a follow on Instagram or on TikTok. And don't forget, listen to her, Sophia Bush, and Hillary Burton on their Drama Queens podcast as well. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow or subscribe to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you'd be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. We do care what you think about our interviews, and the more feedback we have from friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps, the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm Jon Evans. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of One-on-One.